Good morning. I'm Caleb Swartz, and thanks for joining me for today's devotion. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever thought of God as a warrior? For that matter, have you ever thought of yourself as a warrior? See, I think this is kind of an aspect of God in ourselves that we don't often contemplate, mostly because we live in an era where really professional soldiers take care of the fighting. They're the warriors. And we really have widespread peace for the most part. And I'm really thankful for that. I think that's just an incredible blessing from God. But realize that God himself has declared that he's a warrior. In Zephaniah 3:17, and I'm going to be reading from the Holman Christian Standard Bible. It's a little different translation, but I like the way that it states this. And it reads, Yahweh your God is among you, a warrior who saves. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will bring you quietness with his love. He will delight in you with shouts of joy. Now, God himself has declared that he's a warrior. And if we go back really to the beginning, Genesis 1:26, we know that he created us in his image. So in each of us, there is some part of a warrior. And I think God did this. He intended for us to be fierce men and women that are ready to battle for him. Now, as we think of battle, I think oftentimes we think of the physical things that are in front of us. We think of two armies marching at each other. We think of maybe battling for prosperity or battling to take care of people or battling diseases, these very physical things. But we know from what Jesus revealed to us, really God's intent for what the battle is meant to be is a spiritual battle. That was Jesus' whole mission for being here. He was on mission when he was with us. And Ephesians 6:12 confirms this. It talks about the struggles and the battles that we fight are really of a spiritual nature, not against people or things that we see. And they're battles for really people's souls and people's minds. The enemy wants to distract us. He wants to really disable us. He wants to defeat us, demoralize us. He wants to destroy the good things that God wants to do through us. And that is a battle. But, not all battles are about the fight. As you go back to Zephaniah there, God declared himself a warrior, but he also said that he loves to rejoice over us, that he wants to quiet us, and that he wants to delight. So there's a lot of really aspects of what it means to be a warrior that are outside of the physical battle. There's a quote by Archilochus that I really like. He says, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but we assume we'll rise to the highest level of our expectations, but in reality, in the moment, we fall to the level of our training. So this idea that we'll rise to the moment is not always true. And as I got thinking about that, I came across this really, really great series of questions that was produced by some scrappers. And I don't mean scrappers in the terms of fighting. I mean, literally, it's the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. But they were talking about this quote and training their employees. And they asked a couple of questions that I think when you look at them from a spiritual lens, make a lot of sense for us. What is your training like? Does it happen by default or is it according to a plan? Is it intentional? Are you documenting it? Are you conducting it on a regular basis? Who is training you? Is it someone that knows proper training techniques, that's well versed in the skill you're trying to learn, or are you just picking it up from what seems to be working and what others are doing? You see, without proper training, the battle, the workplace, your spiritual lives will never see the victory that God wants for you. So, we have to train for the battle. I just encourage you, think about what your battle is. What has God specifically called you to be fierce in fighting for? Is it social and fighting on behalf of people? Is it to bring food to people? Is it to train people up in truth and knowledge of what God says? Is it to provide people with safe cars in this world where things are constantly breaking? Who knows what your battle is? You know that, and God knows that. But think about how you're training for it. Let me pray with you as I close. God, you've told us that you're a warrior. You've called us to be warriors like you, and you've placed us where we are with what we have to accomplish a specific purpose that's going to bring you glory, that's going to push back the spiritual enemies and advance your kingdom here on this earth. Help us to identify our battles, to train for them, to be prepared, and to engage in them. Give us courage, God. Amen.